You say sorry like you're checking the room for oxygen, like if you apologize fast enough, maybe they won't notice you were here. You don't even hear it anymore. It just slips out. Like a glitch in your code you stop trying to debug. But underneath every sorry is a sentence you never finished. A version of you that never got permission to speak. And some days, you don't know if you're polite or just terrified of being seen. Who told you your presence came with a cost? Who made you believe that shrinking was safer than standing still? Maybe you don't want to disappear. Maybe you just never learned how to exist without apology. It happens before you think. You're about to speak, and the apology slips out first. You catch it, mid-sentence, mid-thought, mid-breath. But by then, it's already curled itself around your voice like armor. You weren't even wrong. You weren't late. You weren't loud. But the sorry shows up anyway. As if your existence came with a trigger warning. You've learned how to enter rooms like you're bracing for impact. Smaller footsteps, softer tone. Smile rehearsed, just enough to signal, I won't take up too much space. No one told you to do this. But somehow, you picked it up, like static in the background that eventually became the only thing you could hear. And the worst part? They call you kind, thoughtful, so polite. But they don't see the trade. They don't see how every apology costs you a piece of your voice. You probably know this feeling, even if you've never said it. That second of silence after you speak, where your brain rushes in to scan the room for disapproval, like a fire alarm without smoke. You replay the sentence you just said. Was that too direct? Too messy? Too visible? You think you're just being considerate, but underneath it, you're preparing for rejection before it happens. You've learned to manage people's reactions like it's your job to control their discomfort. And when they frown, even if it has nothing to do with you, your instinct is always the same. Apologize. Erase the impact. Disappear without leaving a mark. That's the loop. You don't even get to feel hurt because you've already preloaded the guilt. Here's the part that still stings. There's a version of you that never got to exist without this filter. You think back to moments, sharp and ordinary at the same time, where it might have started. Your teacher calling you too talkative when you were just excited. A friend rolling their eyes when you asked the second question. Or that time at dinner when you said something, anything, and your parents' silence was somehow louder than words. You learned to shrink before anyone asked you to. You started to believe that being easy, agreeable, invisible was the safest way to stay close. So now, you overthink greetings. You triple read your texts. You apologize when someone else bumps into you. And still, you can't stop wondering if you've said too much. If you're too much. It's not that you're exhausted. It's that every interaction feels like a test you're trying not to fail. And the test isn't about being right. It's about not being wrong enough to be rejected. You rehearse your niceness like it's survival. Even your silence is curated, measured, polished. They call it emotional intelligence. But for you, it feels more like emotional debt. A ledger you keep in your head, tallying how much space you've taken and how much you still owe. You think it'll make people like you, stay close, choose you. But even when they do, you don't feel chosen. You feel tolerated, like they're doing you a favor by letting you stay. And then without warning, it shows up again, in the smallest places. You apologize to the barista because your order took too long. You say sorry when your friend asks if you're okay, as if your feelings are an inconvenience. You even say sorry when someone compliments you, as if being seen requires a disclaimer. Some days you don't know if you're apologizing for what you did or for who you are. And the loop just tightens, because the more you say it, the more you believe it. Sorry for asking, sorry for needing, sorry for existing. It becomes your punctuation, your signature. But no one calls it what it is. They call you self-aware, sensitive, empathetic. But empathy isn't supposed to cost you this much. You thought being good meant being small. You thought being liked meant being agreeable. You thought being loved meant being easy to handle. So now, even when someone holds space for you, you don't know what to do with it. You fold yourself anyway. Reflex. You say it's nothing when it's everything. You say don't worry about it when your chest is unraveling. You say I'm fine. Even when the silence is flooding every corner of your day, and underneath it all, there's this quiet question you don't dare ask. What would happen if I stopped apologizing? What would be left? Would they still like you? Would they still stay? Or would they finally see the version of you you've been trying so hard to hide? The one that takes up space, the one that needs, the one that's not always sorry. You don't say it out loud. You just keep shrinking, smiling, disappearing. One sorry at a time. And right there is where you got used to disappearing. Not all at once, just a little less each time. Less volume in your voice, less room in your thoughts, less claim to the space you live in. You built a life on politeness, but it never made you feel welcome, only tolerated. You don't even know when the reflex became the rule. You just know that now, you flinch at your own needs before anyone else even sees them. And it's not humility. It's fear, dressed up like kindness. You think if you keep apologizing, maybe they'll let you stay. Maybe they won't see how afraid you are to take up the room you're already in. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how well it worked. They stopped questioning you, because you never questioned them. They stopped hurting you, because you hurt yourself first. You made yourself easy to ignore. So they did. This is where the silence started to scream. When someone asked what you needed and you didn't know what to say. Not because you had nothing to ask for, but because you stopped letting yourself ask. You're tired, but it's not exhaustion, it's erosion. The slow undoing of a person who made peace with invisibility. And maybe that's the part that scares you most. Not that you're fading, but that it feels familiar, safe even. What if you've mistaken absence for control? What if this isn't survival, just a quieter kind of collapse? You start to realize you don't trust yourself anymore. Not with joy, not with space, not even with the truth. You edit your feelings before they reach your mouth. You shrink your ideas before anyone else can reject them. You give your recognition away before someone notices you wanted it. You never ask to be seen. Because the last time you were, someone called you too much, and it stuck. So now, you apologize. Just in case, just to be safe. Just to not be left. But what does it cost you to live that small? Here's the fracture. It doesn't feel like a scream. It feels like standing in your own skin and realizing you never moved in. You decorate your life with other people's comfort. You make yourself useful, manageable, forgettable. Because somewhere along the way you convinced yourself that being wanted was always conditional. So you perform safety instead of asking for it. You perform care without receiving it. You perform you without being you. What if you've never really been chosen, just accepted, for how well you erased yourself? What if every time you said sorry, you were just trying to prove you wouldn't take too much to love? And what happens when you finally run out of room to make yourself smaller? What do you do when being quiet starts to feel like being gone? What do you call it when you still show up every day, but not as yourself? Right here is where something quietly broke, and no one noticed. Not even you. Maybe it wasn't silence. Maybe it was you. Trying not to be too much again. You almost said something, but the room didn't feel safe enough. And after a while, you stopped checking if it ever could be. There's a kind of tired that doesn't sleep off. The kind that comes from erasing the same part of yourself over and over, until even you forget what used to be there. And maybe that's what hurts now. Not the forgetting, but how easy it became to exist without asking if you still wanted to. You've spent so long smoothing the edges they don't even feel like yours anymore. You say sorry to stay soft, but no one ever asked what it was costing you. What if no one ever really knew you because you never felt safe enough to show them? What if your kindness was just the part of you most scared to be left? And what if the ache you carry isn't about being wrong, but about being unseen? It's okay if you don't have the words yet. It's okay if all you can do right now is not apologize for needing more than survival. You don't have to figure it all out, just don't disappear mid-thought.